Hey guys, Jake here. Got another video for you today. Today we're going to be looking at my bag from sort of the summer to the end of the tournament season for me here coming into the fall. I know it's been a while since I did a video. Things have been kind of hectic. But I figured better late than never, right? So we'll go ahead and start into it. First thing you'll notice is that I've been using a cart. That's new. I did get this Zuka Backpack LG cart kind of early on, so I've been using it most of the summer. I'll probably do a separate review for this, but it's been working really well, and I've just had my previous Voyager bag, Voyager Lite, in the cart with it. So yeah, got all kinds of extra stuff hanging off here, but we're not going to worry about that now. We'll just go through the discs. So to start, we're going to look at putters. So sort of new from last time, I have switched entirely over to pilots for putting. I have a stack of these things, a variety of cosmic and standard Electron, and a mixture of soft and medium as far as stiffness goes. And I use them all pretty interchangeably for putting. I do throw these occasionally for upshots if I need, a very short, gentle, like Annie upshot or something. These are really good at holding the line. They're a very glidey disc, but mainly I'm using these for putting. They're just such a great putter, both inside and out of Circle 1. Lots of glide. In the wind, they can get a little bit sketchy, because if you get the nose up into a headwind, these things will definitely float on you. So in that case, sometimes I'll switch to something a little bit more overstable, like one of my NVs or an Entropy or something, but 99.9% of the time, I'm putting with pilots. So I always keep two of them in the bag. And yeah, I really don't have any special ones I use just for putting. I kind of throw and put all of them and beat them all in about the same. So great disc. And I guess I should say I stopped putting with NVs, primarily just because it didn't make sense to have two different molds for putting. In the fact that both of them are comfortable for Circle 1, and I really like the pilots for Circle 2, so it just made sense to use one mold for both versus switching back and forth, even though I do still like the feel of an NV for putting in Circle 1. It's just not quite as nice as I think the pilot is in Circle 2. So that's sort of the main switch there. As we get into the top of the bag, this is sort of my approach discs and other putters and such. So first we have my sort of my utility pair. First off, we've got this one is a Neutron pilot, but any sort of premium pilot, honestly, they all fly about the same. They're glidey. They're a little bit more overstable than the Electron ones. Like all of the ones that I have still don't really turn. They still have a ton of great glide and a nice clean finish. So these are actually great for forehands. If I really want to do a gentle forehand, like anti-flick, these things will just glide out forever and go around corners. Sometimes if I just want to go kind of straight at the basket with an upshot, and know that when it hits the ground it's just going to sit and stay, the pilot's great because it doesn't have a lot of ground play. And then sort of the counterpoint is the Entropy. The Entropy is similar to Zones, Harps, all those other super overstable putters. This disc will dump really hard. So if I want to throw a sort of a more steep flex scramble shot, or if I want to approach and make sure that the disc just sort of hyzers and stops without worrying about it floating past the basket or something, I do throw this Entropy, and I throw it a lot. I use this disc for pretty much every scramble shot, honestly. This thing has gotten me out of so much trouble. I can forehand it, I can backhand it. It's great. But this pair is usually, if I have a shot in the woods, I'll grab these two discs and go walk over there, see what my lie looks like. It's almost always going to be one of these two guys. Next up, we have some Electron NVs. First one you've seen plenty of times before. This is Old Yeller. My beat up, super flippy, soft Electron NV. This thing still is probably my flippiest putter. It is potentially going to get replaced. The Paradox and the Uplink are both contenders for being able to do the same sort of lines that this NV does, and I don't have to worry about trying to beat one up to get it to do that. So if I ever lose this one, I need to have so many beat up backups. But with those other discs, they kind of already have that flip right out the box. So I still keep this in the bag for now, but I'm kind of playing around with maybe swapping it out for one of those other mids. Even though they are mids, they still fly the same line at the same distance. So, and then I also have a firm Electron NV in the bag. This one I use currently for dead straight shots. If I want to go, say, 280 or something like that, I'll probably pull out an NV, throw it super hard. It's not going to turn over on me, and it's going to have just a nice light fade. The problem is these do beat in sort of quickly in comparison to premium plastic discs. So I have been cycling through a lot of Electron NVs, and while I still love them, I kind of want something that's a little bit more permanent, which is why I also have now a plasma proxy in the bag. The idea is I'm going to beat in my plasma proxy to sort of fly the exact same as these semi-beat Electron NVs. This same sort of flight, super duper straight, minimal turn. If there's wind, this is going to turn a bit more than the NV, but mostly I can trust it to go perfectly straight. And these plasma ones do have a nice little finish at the end. Nothing too crazy, but pretty much the same flight out of these guys. So hopefully I can replace, at least some of the time, these Electron NVs with the premium proxies. Just a great disc. They feel exactly the same. I've thrown proxies in the past, and it's just a great disc. It just felt like overlap. But I'm finding that overlap is a lot harder to maintain with the Electron. All right, last two in the top here. First one, got the premium NV. This guy's still just a workhorse. If I have a short hyzer approach or want a little bit of ground play, in particular, this is a Neutron soft, so it's going to bend if it hits a tree. It's more likely to drop versus careening off into the woods. Just a super reliable disc. If I need to throw like a real short flex and make sure it comes out, these NVs just do it perfectly. I do also like the new Eclipse 2.0 ones. They're a little bit more overstable, the ones that I've thrown, so that they can be really nice if it's a little bit windier. I'll usually throw one of those in the bag as well. And then this guy, if I throw it really hard and flat, it will fly perfectly dead straight, probably 260, 270, and then it'll just start to, sort of fade out nicely at the end. So just a really reliable disc. It's a hair less overstable than the Entropy and a hair more overstable than the Proxy. It just sort of fits right in the middle, and it sees a lot of use. Last in the top of the bag is currently a Paradox. I will not say that this is going to necessarily make the bag forever, but it's been a lot of fun playing with this since it came out. The flippiest disc on the planet Earth, I swear. This thing does stuff that I didn't even know was possible. So you can do some really fun, it's almost like the opposite of my usual utility disc. Like I usually have a super overstable utility disc like a Pyro. This is sort of the opposite end of that spectrum, where I can throw this with almost no power and get it to flip up or flip over. It'll hold anhyzers. I can put pretty much no power on this, and it's not going to fade out at all. So it's nice, especially comparing it with, say, this guy here. This one's still flippier, but I can get similar flights because I can throw this soft and still get this flight. This one just might have a little bit of fade, whereas this one doesn't. So I'm hoping when I get my uplink that the uplink will be a little bit less flippy and will be closer to what I want to replace this with. But for now, we only have the Paradox, so I've been just kind of playing with it, seeing how it works, see if it's something I want to try to do. Again, sort of like I was saying with the Proxy and the Electron NV, it's just nice to have a premium version that's going to hold its stability for a while, because these takes a while to beat them in to be this flippy, but there's just a lot of like flight changes throughout their life when you're beating in a baseline plastic. So it'd be really nice to be able to replace those with something a little bit more permanent. And that's really my approach game, the top of the bag. So let's move down now into the mid-ranges. I have a few more mid-ranges than last time, if you include the Paradox, I guess, because we've had some additions. I guess we'll start with the more overstable end. I'm still throwing the Pyro as a utility disc. I do throw it a little bit more often for just straight to fade shots. I found that as they kind of beat in, they do gain a little bit more utility as just a straight flyer before they dump, versus when they're fresh. I mean, they're pretty much just super overstable. So I still use this guy for utility shots all the time, you know, grenades or skip shots or weird forehand flexes in the woods, things like that. But I also find that it's just a good straight to fade backhand. So I keep one kind of beat up in the bag and sometimes a fresh one as well, depending on the course I'm playing. But Pyro is just still a fantastic disc. Next up, we have the Reactor. Reactor's still in the bag. It's the slightly straighter version of the Pyro. Well, more than slightly. It's a much straighter version of the Pyro. It will fly very straight, very glidey, with just a nice predictable finish at the end. I don't usually have issues with these guys turning over at all. If they get really beat in, they will, but most of the ones I have are still pretty fresh. And I like to keep them just for something that I want to throw dead straight and finish left. I probably get about 310 pretty consistently with these guys, so tends to see a decent amount of use. But the really important mid-range that has improved my game is the Hex, and I carry two different Hexes. The Hex is a much straighter version of the Reactor, feels exactly the same, has a ton of glide, but doesn't really have much turn and a almost non-existent fade when you throw it hard enough. These things are just so straight and they go for so long. I mean, these things can go 340 for me pretty easily just with the glide. It's crazy. So I have this one, which is a little bit heavier. It's a 177. This one is less likely to turn over if there's a little bit of a headwind. Not that they really will turn too much either way, but it's just sort of a little bit more stable. And this guy is a lighter. It's a 166. This one I can use for throwing if I want to try to get a little bit of turn or just have it fade a little bit less, or if there's a tailwind or something, I'll maybe throw this guy. I just kind of like having two hexes on the opposite end of the spectrum in the bag at the same time. Just gives you a little bit more variety in the shots. But these things get so much use. They're basically a fairway driver. Absolutely love them. It's probably my favorite disc in the bag right now. If you haven't tried a Hex, you should definitely try it if you're looking for a straight mid-range. Alright, moving into the fairways. So previously I carried a Reactor, but between the Hex, which flies roughly the same distance, even though it's a speed slower and it's very, very straight, and then having the Crave, which is a little bit more understable when they're beat in or lighter weight, it seemed like the relay was just kind of overlap. I still really love the relay. It just didn't do enough things for me to keep in the bag. So now I'm pretty much replacing most of those shots with the Hex and the Crave. I have these Neutron Craves. Previously I think I just had been bagging the Proton ones, which are a bit more overstable. These Neutron ones are so great. They'll fly just a nice S-curve, probably 350 to 360 normally. I can get them a little further if I try. I have gotten them over 400 feet, but usually I'm reaching for a different disc at that point. But they're just so controllable. They feel so good in the hand, and they just glide forever. This particular one is really beat up and really flippy, so if I need a long turnover, this is like my equivalent to my beat up relay. Really flies just beautifully, and it does still have a little bit of finish at the end too, so it doesn't tend to cut roll. And then I also have this green one here. It's a little bit fresher, a little bit heavier. It's 175. This guy I can trust a little bit more to stay straight and come back. You know, it's not going to turn over and keep going. So I kind of keep one of each in the bag, and these guys get a ton of work, especially in the woods. They're really good. You can do some really awesome hyzer flip shots with them, things like that. Then we have the Volt. The Volt, still in the bag. It's the much more overstable version of the Crave. Basically, you take away pretty much all of the turn and boost the fade a little bit, and you get the Volt. Still feels amazing in the hand. Still goes a long ways. But these ones are really great for forehands, or if I try to throw a long flex. Especially the Bendy James ones. I have 3 of these guys. This particular run of Neutron just seems to be a bit more overstable. In a headwind, they will fly so dead straight. Just no turn, no fade, just wonderful. And then I do have, this is an old misprint I've had for quite a while. It's a bit more beat up, so this one will actually turn a bit. I do like to hyzer flip this one, or if there's like a bit more of a tailwind, or I just want to get a little bit more turn, this can be a good option for if the Crave, I'm worried about the Crave turning over too much. This guy, it'll still turn over, but it'll definitely come back hard at the end. So just a nice compliment. I've been running sort of 2 volts at a time, one beefy and one beat up. And that's pretty much all my fairways, which is honestly most of the shots that I do are going to be fairways as far as drivers. But I do still have some drivers in the bag. A mix of control and distance drivers. So we'll look at the control drivers first here. I still bag an Insanity. This is the Cosmic Neutron one. These ones are much straighter and more overstable, comparable to the new Eclipse 2.0 ones. They're just really great if you need a long, straight shot. So I can throw this pretty much as hard as I want, and it will turn and still come back. It's very similar to the flight of a Crave, but I can hit this one as hard as I want. The Crave, if I were to do that, will just turn over and continue to the right. This one will turn, but it'll come back. So it'll go a little longer, but with a similar flight to a Crave, and I can throw it as hard as I want. I also keep a Plasma Insanity. The Plasma ones and the Proton ones, at least the latest runs, are much flippier than the Cosmic ones. The Cosmic ones are like a whole other disc, kind of like the relays. But these Plasma ones, they're super flippy. This is a 166, so it's extra flippy. I love these for hyzer flips and long turnovers. That if I need to have a long tunnel shot that kind of ends right, this can be a good option. This doesn't see as much use. I have other discs, like the Crave for turnover shots, and I have a different longer disc for turnover shots that I tend to use more often, but it does come out occasionally and it has its role. But I carry the 2 Insanities, 1 flippy, 1 straight, and that's my control drivers, as well as a Fireball. I think I had a Fireball in the last video, but I don't think I used it very often. I went through probably like a month or so this summer where I took everything faster than a 9-speed out of my bag, and so I was forced to use this in place of like my Cosmic Neutron Photons and things like that for a while, and I've really learned to love this disc. It's such a good disc. I use it for more than just utility. I mean, it's great for skip shots and spike hyzers and things like that, but even if I just need to throw something really hard and straight and know that it's going to finish really hard left, like this has replaced a lot of my old Tesla shots, which the Tesla is actually out of the bag right now. It's just such a nice disc. It does not have much in the way of glide. It's sort of a brick, but it's it's just very, very reliable. So I do find myself throwing this a whole lot more often now, and it's definitely got a place in the bag. The last two discs I've got Fission Photons. These are my max distance discs. I have at least two in the bag now usually. This yellow one is 146, super light, super flippy. I mean, it's about as flippy as my Insanity, the plasma one. The difference being this thing has way more fade at the end, so if I throw it flat and hard, it's going to turn over a long ways, and then when it slowly starts to kind of reach the end of its flight, it just comes back super hard at the end. So it's just nice to have. It's great for hyzer flipping, super long distances, and things like that. It's a great distance driver. And then I also keep a little bit heavier one. This one's a 160. This one I'll get a little bit of turn, but I can trust to throw this thing into pretty strong wind, and it'll still hold up to it. But it's just great distance. These Fission ones fly so far. They have decent amount of dome. The plastic feels great. And then I usually also keep one that's, closer to the max weight end in the bag, and that's like a meat hook. Those things are super overstable. It's amazing how much a difference the weight makes in the Fission discs versus other discs. I never noticed that much of a difference in any other disc when it comes to weights, but the Fission ones, the light ones are super flippy and the heavy ones are super beefy, and so they actually feel like different discs. So I usually keep 2 to 3 of these, maybe more if there's a lot of water hazards, things like that, but these things go a long ways. I can get these around 400 feet, maybe a little over if conditions are right. Yeah, and they're pretty similar to like a Wraith. It's what is it, 11.5, -1.5, 2.5. So yeah, just a great disc. And that is currently what I've been bagging. So I've been bagging basically all summer, with only some minor changes. The Hex is fairly new. The Paradox is even newer than that. But for the most part, all the discs have kind of been in at some point. So yeah, that's what I'm running right now. Things are going to change up here soon for winter again. We'll see. I'll probably try to do another bag in the bag for winter. I'll probably wait until December or January maybe. Give a little bit of time to figure out what works. But yeah, I'm also hoping to do a mystery box soon, and maybe we'll see. There might be a Secret Santa box to unbox, so we'll see those soon. I don't know if I'll be doing a lot of other filming during the winter, but I'm really hoping that next year I'll be able to do more, less tournaments and more content. So yeah, if you like this, feel free to throw a like on the video and subscribe if you want to see more. Otherwise, we'll catch you in the next one.